The day after President Biden announced all U.S. troops would be out of Afghanistan by early September, his top diplomat arrived in Kabul on an unannounced visit. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Afghan leaders to reassure them and explain the decision. His first stop, meeting President Ashraf Ghani.
I wanted to demonstrate with my visit the ongoing commitment of the United States to the Islamic Republic and to the people of Afghanistan.
We respect the decision or adjust our priorities.
We have a...
Blinken also met with Ghani's former governing partner, Abdullah Abdullah.
We are grateful to your people, your country, your administration, and decision about the moving to the next phase into the next chapter.
Blinken finished his 8-hour visit with a speech at the U.S. Embassy in Kabul.
The United States will remain Afghanistan's steadfast partner. We want the Afghan people, countries in the region, and the international community to know that fact. It's also a very important message for the Taliban to hear.
President Biden's Wednesday announcement grew from a deal struck last year by the Trump administration and the Taliban. That agreement included a May 1st deadline for U.S. troop withdrawal. Biden pushed that to September 11th, the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. U.S. officials say their exit plan was coordinated with allies in NATO, which said troops from its member nations, around 7,000, would also leave. Coalition partner Australia, not a NATO member, said today it too would pull out its last 80 troops.
In line with the United States and our other allies and partners, the last remaining Australian troops will depart Afghanistan in September 2021.
But as Afghan civilians process the news, many are uncertain about what happens next.
It's a worrying situation, and people believe that if the foreign troops leave the country, there will be a civil war.
The Taliban have pledged to renew attacks on NATO and U.S. troops if they're not out by the original May 1st deadline. I'm joined now by Roya Rahmani, the Afghan ambassador to the United States. She served in this role since 2018. Ambassador Rahmani, welcome back to the NewsHour, and thank you for making the time. You just heard in that report there from Bilal Sultani. He's a student in Kabul. He said he's worried when the U.S. leaves, the country will go into civil war. Do you share that concern?
I am concerned about the continuation of violence. However, for 20 years, Taliban have been justifying the war and violence because of the presence of foreign troops. So now that all foreign troops are leaving, if the war continues, if the violence continues, that's on Taliban. And that's not a gesture that they want a peaceful, stable Afghanistan. Having said that, our forces would continue to defend our people, our gains, our rights and dignities as long as it takes. We have been mostly in active defense mode since the signing of the US-Taliban agreement. However, we have seen an increased level of violence by the Taliban. So while I am worried, but I am really also hoping that this time Taliban would, now that the reason or the main reason for their violence is addressed, that they would put a stop to this and come to the negotiation table.
But let me ask you, Ambassador, because many of their attacks have been targeting Afghan targets, civilians, and Afghan forces. As you mentioned, those forces are fighting, but they're losing. The Taliban now control or contest more territory across Afghanistan than at any other point in the last 20 years. And in recent months, they've closed in around major capital cities. So I wonder, without U.S. help, without coalition support, can you hold them at bay?
It has been the Afghan forces that have been at the forefront of this fight against terrorism. Of course, the U.S. support and our NATO ally support has been critical to this fight. But we would continue to do what it takes to defend ourselves and our nation.
Ambassador, let me ask you, though, because the Taliban say they will not negotiate with you. So how do you get them to the table, especially once the U.S. is gone?
We have been very disappointed by their reaction is obviously not constructive at all towards finding a peaceful settlement to this conflict. One of the commitment that we have been hearing, both from United States and our international allies, have been their diplomatic support, and we are hoping that that diplomatic support would be channeled in a way, both from their sides and to our regional partners, that would compel Taliban to come to the table and negotiate.
Can I ask you about the way that the peace talks have unfolded so far? Because the U.S. largely went around President Ghani. They seem to see him as an impediment or an obstacle to that process. Do you think that the U.S. treated President Ghani fairly in this?
The partnership between U.S. and Afghanistan has been always a foundational one. It has been a respectful one. And in terms of your comment regarding President Ghani, I have to tell you that President Ghani has been the one who has demonstrated the most commitment towards peace. It has been his platform of election. And at the same time, he has taken very difficult and risky steps in order to move forward towards a peace process. The United States, yes, stepped in to facilitate the peace process. The first phase of it was negotiation between the US and the Taliban, but then it also led to an opportunity that the Taliban and the Afghan government could discuss and try to find a solution together.
Ambassador, let me ask you, if the Taliban do agree to negotiate with you, what does a political solution right now even look like? Can you share power with a group that doesn't even believe that women should have rights?
We understand that a peace process is a process, number one. It's a negotiated settlement. There is not winners and losers, but there would hopefully be a overall winning situation for the people. It requires give and take. But in regards to the rights of the women, any process that neglects 50% of the population of their rights and dignities, that would not lead to a sustainable peace. That's not peace. It could be a settlement, but it's not durable and it's not peace.
But Ambassador, I must press you here. That's exactly what's happened. In the areas that Taliban control, girls are not allowed to go to school. Public lashings of women have continued. What leads you to believe that they would change?
What gives me hope that they would change if they come to a negotiated settlement is the respect to the will of people. Polling has shown just last year that for the peace process, one of the top priorities is preservation of women's rights. That's the will of people. When you go against the will of people, that does not work. And unfortunately, we have seen for so many decades what that results to, war.
Roya Rahmani, Ambassador of Afghanistan to the United States, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.